All right, looks like we're up and streaming. So there was no action taken in closed session. So we'll move on to our next item, which is our other matters. Are there any other matters to come before this committee? All right, see none. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Mr. Hoffman, second by Mr. Schultz. Thank you.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
We got to say no action was taken.
I did say that, but I'll repeat it again. No action was taken under closed session, as Mr. Fiducia alluded to. We have a motion by Mr. Hoffman, second by Mr. Schultz for adjournment. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We are now adjourned, and so bear with us while we do the combined policies and personnel with finance.
Is everybody okay if we just go right now? I'd like to call to order the Personnel and Policies Joint Meeting with Finance Committee on Thursday, October 29th, 2020. Mr. Salgado is here, myself, Mr. Fiducia is here, Mr. Hoffman.
Angie Goro.
Our girl's not here, Mr. Schultz.
Here.
Mr. McDonald. Here. Mr. Webster.
Here.
Mrs. Goro signified she was here. Mrs. Red.
Here.
Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Makita.
Here.
Mr. Arena.
Here.
Let the record show that we have a quorum. Mr. Thompson, do we have any public comment for this evening's joint meeting?
No, sir.
Then we'll move on to the first item on the agenda, and that's item D. That is discussing River Bluff Nursing Home financial operations. At this time, what I'd like to do is I believe all of you received an email from Mr. Salgado, and I would like to turn it over to Mr. Salgado so we don't have a repetitive questions. And I'd like him to go ahead and read the 5 points, and then we'll take the answers from the River Bluff staff and administration.
Thank you, Mr. Fiducia. As everybody, I think I sent out a questionnaire of questions that were through Word. I don't know if everybody got a chance to review them. Talking about what's the break even, what's our revenue per resident. It just from their response, it was a mixture of Medicaid, Medicare, and private pay. So they can't really give us a number there. The other piece of it was, what other things can we do? If we outsourced it, what the implications were. They certainly said they could, but we would still be in liability. The other piece was what about being sold was another question. They said that they don't know legally it could be done. We addressed that. So, but I know Pat's on the line. So you got that information. The biggest piece that I asked Mr. Thompson and the finance team was to kind of give us a P&L, the profit and loss, essentially, of a historical 5-year. It was kind of eye-opening to see 2015. Their loss was about $190K, I want to say, to now in the $1.9 million loss. So just eye-opening to see that. I wanted to have that information out available. Some of the things that jumped out for those that haven't had the time was, obviously the payroll, the personnel piece, the payroll, the consulting part of it being high cost there with the health insurance. Those things kind of jump out at us. So it kind of gives a historical context where we're at. I know Mr. Schultz and the auditors were kind of adamant about our cash flow issues that we're having. Please look at those, review those, but I'd like to see if there's a strategy potentially where we could get to 2015 kind of level where it's breaking even. So just wanted to give that information out to everybody. So, and I want to appreciate Pat for actually taking the time to answer those questions, give her nuances on what's actually happening out there, because I could just say, yeah, we need to do this from my standpoint, but in reality, there are things out there that are out of my control or their control. So, with that being said, I will like to open it up for discussion on what you saw or read, and if there are any particular questions for Pat, Mr. Thompson, and I know Steve's on the line, so maybe we could pick his brain a little bit here and there, but I just want to open it up. Mr. Fiducia, you want to start off with any comments and then obviously go into questions and comments?
No, I just would like the 5 points that you brought up. I'd like to hear administration's views on them and where the break-even point is and all this. So I'll turn it over to Pat McDermott.
Okay, well, we were getting very close prior to COVID. We were up around 200. It took quite a few months to get there, but we were right around 200 before we stopped taking admissions. We had figured a little 212 or so, 202, I think it was, and 12 Medicare, we could get to a break even. COVID has thrown that off for a loop, but we are looking at a steady plan to increase the census again now. We've opened it up. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with COVID. You know, the numbers in the county are going up, but I think we could have a plan within 6 to 7 months. We could probably get back to a break even point if COVID stays somewhat under control. We had a significant problem with our AR here and with our cash flow, but I will tell you now it's starting to come in. We got the right people in place. It's really starting to move along. I mean, we're practically every day, you know, getting in documents, you know, from public aid, from Medicare, from wherever, saying, okay, these are approved, the money's coming your way. You know, some things that have been sitting out there a long time, bed taxes and stuff had to be paid. But we're on that I'm not worried about. We're on the road there. My biggest concern is for what we pay, we have to use agency. You know, we start our staff, our CNAs off at 13, I think it's 13.15 an hour. I'm paying an average of $35 to $36 an hour using agency. They probably weren't using the agency 5 years ago because they probably had staff of their own. Because maybe the wages were more competitive then. I don't know. But it's a countrywide shortage. It has been for a while. And as long as I'm paying $35 an hour for nursing, we could still get to a good point, but we have to work a lot harder to get there. But I have to have the staff to take care of the residents. That's the bottom line. I can put residents in, but if I don't have the staff to take care of them, then I can't do anything about it.
So I guess what Mr. Salgado and I were looking at also was if you had 202 Medicaid beds, we would be breaking even.
That with 12 Medicare, which would be a natural occurrence.
Okay.
That you would inevitably have, it would be a natural occurrence. It would just how things work. So say 214 total, we would be break even.
What's our count out there now?
Today we're at 139.
Okay, so we're a tad short out there.
No, we didn't admit for 6 months. You know, we have to look at that. We didn't admit in an effort to keep COVID out of here the best we possibly could. We didn't admit. Now we're admitting, and people are coming in. That's also been a complication because we have to separate people out into so many different. It's very complicated. You know, if a resident has signs and symptoms, they have to go down one lane. If a resident, the roommate of that resident, they have to be separated. So I need more staff just to cover the COVID regulations.
Is the staff you're needing CNAs?
CNAs and nursing is starting to get to be a little bit more of an issue now. But CNAs are the biggest. There's now the only department that we are fully staffed at this building is in our business office right now. We
Okay,
can't get a cook for $10.60 an hour. I mean, you can't get cooks, so we have supervisors doing the work.
you mentioned that you would, you want more staff and that the pay that we're giving the CNAs is not up to standard. And I believe you and I talked, and I believe Mr. Salgado and I talked about this. Mr. Thompson, we need to probably find a funding source or a way to go ahead and increase the pay for the CNAs at River Bluff. So that way the administration out there can get at least the cream of the crop, or they're going to have more than they're going to want. And I find this kind of ironic after, understanding that you can get a CNA that you're paying $13 an hour. And if they mess up, they're going to cost us $13 million. And I think that, we should be rigorously evaluating them, but I think we should really explore trying to find a way to get that pay grade up for those people that do that job.
Yeah, Miss Pat, I don't know if you can talk a little bit about the different functions. I know that I saw on the personnel side, I saw dietary salaries, office salaries, and then obviously social activity salaries. So I don't know if you could allude to that, talk to that. One of the biggest things that kind of jumped out at me was the overtime that I see on some of these certain areas. It could be shortages, right?
Yeah, the overtime is way cheaper because none of the departments are full.
Right.
Activities, we can't, our activity aides start at $10.73 an hour.
Right.
These people need something to do. They need socialization. They need more eyes on them to stop falls, to keep people healthy. If I can get somebody to work overtime, you're going to do it because it's that or nothing. Same with the CNAs. It's cheaper for our CNAs to work overtime than to get agency aides.
Right.
Mr. Salgado,
Yes, go ahead, Ms.
as I'm looking at this, if you all go to the very last page of the financial pages, down at the bottom, it says other professional services.
Yep.
I want to draw your attention to the fact that in the year 2019, for temporary services, we paid out $2,181.69. So far this year, we have paid out $1,765 and $1,765.76. If you break this down of what we are paying temporaries, you're going to find the money to actually give our people a raise. If you look at that, we pay them like $35 an hour. What we pay for one CNA, we could actually have 2.5 CNAs for that amount of money. And you think about that how much money we are wasting just in bringing in nursing temps. There's where your money is. There's where the money is that you're going to be able to pay the extra monies that we need to pay the people who have been working there for a long time. And if you look around, many of the nursing homes all through the state, all through the country, what they are doing right now is they've been giving their CNAs and their nursing staff bonuses so that they will stay through this particular time. This is a very vital time in all our nursing homes to keep that COVID down. And so you have to look at that. There's other things that need to be looked at that can be adjusted. But when we started out, I think you said you went for 5 years back. Is that what you wanted?
Yep.
if you remember at the beginning of 4 years ago, we were paying a consulting firm to come in, and we were paying them like 22,000 a month for consulting. That was ridiculous. We thank God we only had a 3-month contract with them, because their idea was to make us fail out at River Bluff because they wanted to be the buyers of River Bluff. That was the ZAC Corporation. And if any of you want to see their contracts, I do have a copy of it, so you can actually see the service we got for it. And 3 months was we were set up to fail. And we're trying to come out of that very hard. The problem with our present administration is they have not worked with River Bluff to try to get them up and out and working again. All they have done has been a deterrent of let's sell it, let's sell it, let's sell it. So they're like a broken record. You know, this is a skilled nursing facility. We don't advertise it either as a skilled nursing facility, because that is what it is. Now we have to go back and change that. That word nursing home went out 20 years ago. That is not a good name. We need to change that name to a skilled nursing facility. And not only that, we should also be doing rehab. We have a wonderful therapy rehab section. It's great. And so we should be taking in private people just to go into that section. But again, we have to have extra nurses. The other thing we should be looking at, because hospice isn't as good as it used to be, and they have another name for it. What do they have for it, Pat?
Palliative care. Palliative.
What is?
Palliative care.
And that's where we should be going and looking at the end of life care for people. And there again, we need nurses to help it. We can bring this place out of the hole if we all work together to bring it out, rather than to keep putting it in the hole. We need some ideas to how to get this back on its feet and keep it going. When you see, like last week, I told you, these other nursing homes, the little ones, are having problems in closing, then we're going to be getting in more of their residents. And not only that, we have opened it up for us to bring in more people from out of the area. Think about it. This could be a real profitable thing if we all worked at it together instead of saying sell it, sell it, sell it. So I hope you give that a thought. We have come out the last year or so working so hard, like Pat said, and all of a sudden we got hit by the virus. We have people there for a while who would not update themselves to the new processes that we have to do with the state and the federal government. And they were putting us behind. We weren't bringing in the monies that we were supposed to get back and reimbursed for. You have to remember, we have to pay for the services first before we get reimbursed from the federal and the state. And that's where a lot of our problems was with not getting our accounts up to date, getting them in. They've been doing a wonderful job on that, and they're starting to come out of a hole with just doing that much. I want you all to take some real serious time thinking about it, instead of damning them for, well, you spent this and you spent that and why. Let's find out what happened there, how can we improve it, and let's move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Gordon.
you.
Just before we move on to the next person, which is Mr. Thompson, he had his hand up. I just want to be clear on this, Ms. Gorel. I do appreciate all your comments. You have the expertise, and you sit on that board and everything. It's just from my perspective, no one is saying that they're the bad individuals in this, or we're trying to cut them short in any shape or form. The whole conversation is to kind of break light from a county member standpoint to kind of get these answers to some of these questions regarding, like Pat has alluded to, our rates are super low, CNAs, et cetera, et cetera. These are our constraints that are kind of holding us back, and try to tackle some of these, like the AR situation, our consulting, $2.1 million, whatever it is that we have to outsource that, where potentially there could be an offset, right? So I just want to be clear on this. This meeting in no shape or form is it to kind of vet a way to say that this is what we're going to do, cut them short, not give them their, but I think it's from a accountability standpoint, from a taxpayer's perspective, to kind of address some of these issues that are out there that are actually holding the county potentially the cash flow strap per se on this end. So I just want to make it clear that no one here is attacking anyone, but we understand there are some issues out there. We're here, we're trying to understand what's actually the constraints out there and seeing if there's any way that we could develop a strategic plan out facility with Mr. Thompson and some individuals in administration to help them through the process of, getting to that break even and to potentially, why not make it profitable where, some of that money could be used for upgrades, et cetera, because we hear it, there's some things we can do as well. So I just wanted to point that out, Ms. Gora, and I do appreciate your passion and everything, but at no point, from my perspective, at least for me, I'm here to see if we can help them run efficiently and avoid some of these expenses or, enhance the revenue out there. So, and give that support to them. So I don't, Mr. Thompson, I'll go to you. And then I think Mr. Arena had his hand up and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I'll defer to the county board members, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Does this board get involved with regulating salaries or staffing levels at the nursing home? Or are we part of that decision-making process?
The staffing levels, no, that's
Mr.
based
Thompson?
on the staffing
Or
level.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, the screen is kind of hesitating. The staffing levels are based on minimums set by the state, the federal government, and then by the needs of the resident. So that's not something the board would be able to get involved with.
Right, and your pay scale, who's
The
setting
pay
that?
scale, absolutely, yes,
We are setting the pay scale?
through the union, and yeah, and through the. I don't know how it was originally said. I don't know how county government works well enough to say how you came to these rates. These are the rates I came into. So I don't know how they were set.
Okay,
But
okay.
they need to be higher, that much I
Mr.
know.
Thompson. Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson, then, so the board has passed some type of a resolution that sets the pay rates for the employees at River Bluff, is that correct?
Well, you've approved a collective bargaining agreement with the employees. And so when I get a chance to talk, but I want to defer to board members, I think one of the recommendations that I'll be making is that we open up a dialogue with the collective bargaining unit to adjust the CNA wage rate to make it more competitive, along with if there are other positions identified in the nursing home that need to be looked at, that'll be one of my recommendations. But yes, to answer your question, the board approves the collective bargaining agreement, which establishes the pay rate.
Okay, thank you. So I just would like to comment that I think that there's been some opinions expressed by board members that we shouldn't be in the nursing home business. I personally think it's a valuable service that we provide to the community, and I would like to be able to see it work. I think we have to, we've made some changes recently, now admitting residents from outside the county to increase the number of people in there. And obviously, everyone's making efforts to make changes. So I think we have to give these efforts some time to play out to see if they're going to work. So from my perspective, I think that should be where our focus is. If Mr. Thompson is suggesting we can do something to maintain better staffing or attract more people, those are things that I guess we can do to make it work. But I would like to see in the run for it to work out. And I just wanted to share that opinion with all of you. Thank you.
Did Mr. McDonald have his hand up?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I've got a question about the staffing agencies. I don't work in healthcare, but I do work in manufacturing. I know most staffing agencies that I deal with charge a 1.5 to 1.6 multiplier. So us being at 1350 and them paying over 30, that's over a 2 multiplier. So I'm curious how much of that the staffing agency keeps and how much actually makes it to the temporary employee.
It depends on the agency. Our most common agency are the traveling CNAs, and they're the most expensive. But it's even hard to get CNAs from agencies at times. So the average agency, I think, pays around 18 to 20 an hour.
Okay, so
now my staff hear that, and they're making their 13 an hour. What happens? They go to, you know, even if they're loyal and they want to be here and take care of their residents, they've got to put food on the table for their kids, you know, so they go.
Even at 18 an hour, then the agency's pocketing $10 per hour of what we're paying for.
Absolutely.
Very expensive way to do business. Thank you.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind though, too, as well as we also pay the health insurance, the pension that's related to that. So it could be 13, but after you factor everything in, there could be a little bit slightly increase on that. I'm not saying that it's more than what $18, $19 an hour would be equivalent to. I just wanted to, throw that out there as well. I'm sure we can get to that magical number that would be under personnel, piece that, with the collective bargaining piece on that. But are there any other questions? Yes, Mr. Schultz.
First of all, I appreciate the information, Mr. Salgado. That was very helpful. I think we're all trying to gather as much as we can to understand what our present reality is, and that was beneficial. And thank you. It's McDermott. I want to get your name right. Okay.
McDermott, yeah.
For just your work on this. Thank you. And I want to acknowledge, we all understand this, but you're working in exceptionally difficult times in leadership, and we appreciate what you're having to deal with right now. This is extreme circumstances, and we have the challenges that you're dealing with, and we want to be responsive, as Mr. Arenas said and Mr. Salgado. There's a variety of thoughts in my mind, and I think it's wise for us to at least consider breaking this into parts and pieces. We have the phase that we're in right now that we have to navigate. There is no choice around that. And you're doing the best that you can to manage the circumstances. But there needs to be a plan to get us out of the present situation as best we can to minimize the negative cash flow during this window of time where we're in this crisis. There's no way we're going to sell. There's no way we're going to move away from this in the short run. If it happens, it will be a long run thing. So one of the things that we've got to face is, okay, what's the minimum damage that we will come out of this, both as it relates to the mission of providing service and the financial hit that we're going to take. So that's a piece. And then separate from that, we've got the longer term view as far as, all right, we have this issue of deferred maintenance. And honestly, that scares me to death because it's just open-ended, it doesn't have definition. So I really believe that we have to put definition to that. What is the accumulation of deferred maintenance, and what will it take for us to get the facility into the condition that it's supposed to be in, that it's not right now? Because that's what I read when I saw that. Another thing that jumped out at me was, I don't remember exactly how it was worded, but something along the lines of the current layout of the rooms and the bathrooms and the setup is not attractive relative to what's expected today. And you're nodding your head, so I got close. Well, that's another critical issue in the longer term that has to be evaluated, okay? When you do the deferred maintenance, could you bundle into that some kind of a retrofit or improvement? And, you know, and what are we talking about to make the facility attractive for the longer term so that the viability would be enhanced at the greater likelihood? So I do believe we're on multiple tracks here. And then the county board has to be empowered with information. And I know that that's what Mr. Thompson is working on. But dividing this into bite-sized pieces and attacking them in order does make some sense to me. The other thing that I want to frame up, because it's a part of our reality, is we have been living, Mrs. McDermott, in a period of time where our general fund has been taking annual hits. We've had elected officials that have spent beyond their budget, and we've had other challenges that have caused us to dip into reserves on an annual basis for many years now. And we're down to critical levels. And so the context of this negative period of time that we've also experienced in the nursing home is on top of that. And so it becomes more stressful, it becomes more urgent, and it really makes our job more troublesome in terms of, wow, I mean, we thought we had problems. It's not just the general fund, folks. You know, we also have a problem in terms of negative cash flows with the nursing home. And so some of the passion and the response and the concern that you've heard is not just about you, it's about our larger context.
Mhm.
And I don't know how helpful that is, but it is part of our reality. Thank you.
I understand.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Mr. Webster, I think you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Say, I'm curious, it's been, I don't know, a year, maybe 2 years. Time flies, I don't remember. But at one of the meetings there, and I'm certain Angie was there, and we heard from, and it might have been before you got there, Pat McDermott. Anyways, we heard from someone there. I don't recall who it was or what group they were from, whatever, but they were talking about the remodeling of one of the wings of River Bluff and making, I don't know, for lack of a better description, like little mini apartment studios or whatever out of them, and renting them out. And they had designs. They showed us some designs and the furniture they'd use and all those sorts of things. And I wondered, did any of that come to fruition? If it did, are they rented out? Are those things making money for us? Or was that a lost cause? Was that money wasted? I'd like to know a little bit about that, Pat, please.
We did, I believe this was kind of before I got here that it was started. And then I kind of, the money was there, so I pushed the project through. We remodeled one lane of Blue Jay. We made it into private rooms. So we're losing basically half the rooms, you know, on that one lane. So we took 10 rooms, we made them nice, we made them private. We were just at the point when we were really going to start marketing those areas when COVID hit. They pretty much, we almost had it put together when COVID hit. Now that's our isolation wing, because we have, and for, you know, any new resident we bring in has to be quarantined for 2 weeks in a private room. So the rooms that we were going to be using is these a little bit nicer area, private, etc. It's all turned over to COVID right now. So it never got to the point before COVID hit. It was just about ready to go. I think we were
so the build
a month away from starting it when starting using that wing when COVID hit. And then our first thought was, of course, that's where we're going to put our isolation people.
All right, thank you. So the build out did take place and the rooms are being used.
Yes.
Okay, so it wasn't money down the drain. And that's what I wanted to know.
We were very, very fortunate that we had their wing ready to go. A lot of nursing homes didn't have that. So we from the very beginning, if somebody shows any signs of illness, we quarantine them or isolate them. New residents go down there. It's saved us. It's really saved us, because if we had to do it within the other wings, it would be much harder to try to control this thing.
So just to follow up then, so when we get over the hump on this COVID, then those rooms will be available. And if they're private rooms, then they will be at a premium price. They should garner a little more, I don't know, income, whatever.
Your hope would be for shorter stay Medicare patients. We do have a great therapy department, and it's the wing closest to the therapy department. That was the plan. To the short-term therapies, you're paid at a much higher rate for them. Get people in and out, get them rehabbed, get them back home, take more people in. That's where you're really going to make your money. You get about 2 to 3 times more for a therapy person than you do for a public aid person. So it's the same as bringing in 3 public aid people if somebody's on all the therapies.
Yes, and that's what I wanted to get a better understanding of there, because that was as I recall, that was the pitch that was made back in the day there for that, and I'm glad to see that's happening. So how many units were there? I don't recall. There wasn't very many, but how many units were there?
10.
10?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I hope that sooner or later we do get over the hump on this, and that 10 perhaps could develop into another 10 or another 10.
It's very nice down there. I mean, that's our nicest unit for sure.
We are not going to get over this hump, right? If I'm understanding this correctly, we're not going to get over this hump or break even unless we get 206 residents into that nursing home, correct?
If we continue paying what we're paying for agency, yes. If we don't pay so much money on agency, we could do it at a lower number.
Okay, what needs to be calculated is what is the with an agency, if we were paying a less of a cost, what could we do? What could we do to make that work so we could break even? Because I think that's the biggest part. Because one of the things I guess I just keep on thinking is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? We have a problem here that we don't have the staff to man the facility correctly, and on the other half, we don't have the residents to break even. So we got to figure out what we're going to have come first.
The staff have to come first. I will tell you that. I worked in this business for 35 years. The staff need to come first. I can't do anything unless I had the staff to take care of the residents, period. And I can't get the staff at the rate that we're offering.
Well, I think that says it all.
May I speak?
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Goro.
Mr. Thompson, if you're going to be doing negotiation with the union, there's where we have to make our changes. I don't know, most of us have been on the board for a while, but are you aware of, some of you are not aware of the fact that we're connected by the jailers there. We're part of their bargaining. And that's where our biggest problem is. We should be separated and have our own bargaining in our own union, not be connected with the jail. That's what's holding us back and not making us go forward. And when you go into the bargaining, they don't understand that many of our people who work there have to work 2 jobs. And when they do that, they don't want to be paying extra monies for insurance. Because a lot of them are still getting some type of help from the state, like a medical card or like food. And they're working 2 jobs to make a living and pay the rent. And I see Candy there shaking her head yes. And perhaps Candy should be talking to us a little bit about our staff and who they are and some background on them So you understand why they need more money per hour. The other thing is, I believe in a couple of years, we're going to have to make that $15 an hour, whether we like it or not. And so why not start now and start easing up to that so that when it does hit, we're already there. Perhaps, Candy, you'd like to say something in respect to this? You're not, you have to unmute yourself.
There we go.
Thank you.
Yes, you're right. Most of our staff are lower income. They don't care about the benefits. They will jump job for 50 cents an hour. You're talking about the rates that they make. Most of the agency CNAs make right around $18 an hour. I just did 3 years at Mercy, and we lost CNAs at Mercy when these agencies bumped their rate up $1 an hour because they could go work in the agency, choose when they want to work, not have to take benefits, and make the higher pay. The other thing that we don't think about with the agency staff is they don't have the commitment. When we have our own staff, they have an investment in the facility. These residents become family to them. And that makes a big difference in the care. And you talk about when you get tags for skin and falls and things, when you have your own staff, you don't have those things because they know those residents. They know what they need when they need it. My mother-in-law just was at River Bluff, and she loved her staff. She had CNAs on the day shift that she loved. Evening staff, she never had the same because we always had agency. And her comment was, I never had to ask for anything. She always knew what I needed. So it's, especially when we're dealing with the elderly who don't always ask for what they need, we have to look at that too in the big picture.
Candy, would you tell them what your position is at River Bluff?
I'm sorry, I'm Director of Nursing. I've worked at River Bluff off and on since 1992. I started out there as a CNA, a single mother as a CNA, and I worked my way up. I worked there about 5 years, left for a few, I returned for 8 years, and then I was gone for 3 and I've just returned again.
Thank you.
And in multiple positions. It's a wonderful facility. I wouldn't have my family there if it wasn't.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Are
Andy.
there any other comments, questions for Pat or Mr. Thompson?
I have one. I guess I'm frustrated a little bit about the facility, but would there be any way for you and Patricia to basically figure out what we'd have to do? That was going to be up to Patricia to what she thinks they should make, where she can get quality personnel to get up to the stand. So, because like I said, what came first, the chicken or the egg? We're going to have to figure out one of these that's come first and figure out how we can get that pay up, what would be the correct number, so that way we could get our own staff sitting in that nursing home that really cares about that place. And we can get up to that break even number at least. And I don't know if we can do that. If we say, hey, we're going to pay these people $20 an hour, let's say you're going to pay them $20 an hour. And I think you're going to have them jumping through the windows to get into the place. But on the other hand, are we going to be able to financially sustain this as a government agency? I don't know.
But it's going to be less expensive than what we're doing now with agency.
Well,
Even with benefits.
I guess what's frustrating me is if we've got a solution sitting in front of us where we know we've basically solved that problem. We're saying, okay, if we pay more, we're going to get better staff. We're going to get more staff, and we're paying a agency, and we're losing money paying that agency, and we're doing it. I don't understand myself. I guess I'm not a smart man when it comes to this kind of stuff, but it seems to me like common sense that we would go ahead and move forward with this, expeditiously and get these numbers out and start to get things going on this. Because if we continue on the way we are, what did we lose last year, Mr. Salgado? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I want to say in the area of 1.8 somewhere around there, million.
We're not going to be able to sustain that. So we're going to have to do something. We're going to have to do something post haste, or else what I hear is I hear people on the board saying we shouldn't be in the nursing home business. And we're going to have to, you guys are going to have to collectively answer to that and say, yes, we should. And this is how we did it. Mr. Kelly, you had your hand up, and I'm going to yield to you. Mr.
Thank
Kelly.
you, and I don't know why my picture went off, but and I have said that, why are we in the nursing home business? It's not a core county function, but we have it, and we have to live with it, and we need to figure out how to make it work, and there are options. I worked in the industry in the early 90s, mainly related to facilities. And there are companies that operate nursing homes on a rental basis, on triple net lease. If we can't sustain the money drain,
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kelly. Point well taken. I believe we've asked that question to Pat, and those are things that we're looking for. Just go off Mr. Fiducia. I think Mr. Thompson is taking diligently notes on what the conversation we're having and the different areas where we would like to see some change and improvement, and see if we could provide that support. So obviously one of the biggest thing is obviously with consultation with the state attorney's office on, talking about bargaining, with the union, et cetera, what are the steps that need to be taken? So I'm sure we can have Mr. Thompson work with Pat and her team to see what strategize a method to get us there. The other piece that Mr. Schultz, I think is very critical is in stages, right? And like I allude to this, it's not going to happen overnight. We understand that, but is how do we get to a level from a planning stage, tackle some of these issues that are out there that get us to a point where we're actually potentially making money in the long run in the future. But ultimately the viability, because we seem to be in this trend, as Mr. Schultz has said, as a county level, we're always behind the ball, right? We're always trying to catch up, and we don't have enough time to actually, think about the long and the life of the county as a whole. So I think from that, I think Mr. Thompson kind of has a good picture of what different areas we need to tackle. But I do like the conversations because it does give some sense and idea of ideas that we can bring to the table, what Pat's working and with her staff, and in areas that, we could provide that support. So from that perspective, I think giving direction to Mr. Thompson to, work with Pat and her team to strategize a sort of plan, of breaking even, looking at resources, looking at, the infrastructure that's out there, and take it step by step and realistically put down how we can actually stop the bleeding a little bit, per se, and actually improve it to a standard that, obviously we can get there. So are there any other questions, comments regarding this topic?
And hearing none, Mr. Thompson and Pat, how long would it take you to come up with some formal recommendations that we could move forward on?
I have some right now.
Cool. We're all ears.
Okay, so first of all, we already took one step. We changed our admissions policy to accept out of county and out of state residents. So Pat came to me probably in my first week or second week, and she said, "Hey, Pat, we have an issue here." And so I went immediately over to the state's attorney's office, and we started reading through the consent decree, and I brought forward a resolution at our last meeting to change our admissions policy, which I think will help. I think we need to immediately address the CNA wage rate, and I will start that process, and also possibly other staff positions that Pat have identified that are way below market. I think we need to increase our marketing effort of the facility. And that sounds simple, and it is simple. I think we need to do more advertising. I think our signage, I think out in front, I think we need to improve our signage of the facility. These are simple things, and people will say, oh, yeah, really? Well, yeah, it makes a difference. I think we need to continue to work with our local hospitals for people that are leaving the hospitals that need long-term care or rehabilitation. And I think Pat is doing that. I think we really need to look at our facility in terms of overall facility improvements. And this is long-range capital improvement planning, which I've talked to the board about, and I'm going to be coming back to you with a long-range capital improvement plan, and the nursing home will be part of that. I think Pat has already alluded to the fact that she needs more private rooms, and I think we need to take the large space. We have a lot of space in the facility, and I think we can convert some of that space into additional private rooms and private bathrooms. We have to make the facility marketable, and I think Pat is in that process of doing that. Maybe look at the number of beds that we're licensed for. I think maybe we could possibly look at a lower number of licensed beds in the facility to allow for more individual private rooms. I think we need to look at the rehab, and Pat alluded to that again. In one of the facilities in St. Croix County, in a nursing home that we owned, we installed a therapy pool in our rehab center, and it was a huge marketing possibility it brought in lots of residents. You think, okay, a whirlpool tub, a therapy pool. They're not cheap to build, I'll tell you that, but it is a huge marketing tool for the facility in terms of rehabilitation. I think, and Angie Gorel hit it right on the head, I think we need to change the name of the facility from the River Bluff Nursing Home to the River Bluff Health and Rehabilitation Center. And that will become part of the new signage and part of the new marketing effort. We need to get away from the nursing home label. I think it's old school. So River Bluff Health and Rehabilitation Center. And then lastly, we need to quit talking about selling it in public forums, because although that's a policy decision of the board, and no offense to Mr. Schultz for, I think we need to have that discussion, but every time we talk in a public setting about selling the facility, that drives down census, because who wants to send their loved one, their mom or dad, grandpa or grandma, to a facility, to a county facility, when the board is talking about selling it? So I think, although that's a policy decision that maybe we have to have, but I think we need to take a positive approach towards the future of the health center. And these are the steps. I think I've just laid it out. These are the things that I would do. And maybe it sounds simple, but sometimes it's the simple solution that will start to turn things around. And I've worked in 3 different Wisconsin counties that have all owned nursing homes, and believe it's no different. Where all counties that have nursing homes are struggling, and they're all having these discussions. But we can turn things around, and I think Pat's the right administrator in place, and she's making good moves. And so I'm gonna, with the board's consent, I'm gonna start working on some of these recommendations. And give us a little time, and I think we'll show you good progress. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Is there any other comments, questions from this committee reference the River Bluff situation? I'm going to defer to Mr. Salgado. Is it your consensus also that we should, this board should formally give Mr. Thompson his suggestions to go forward? Can we do that just in this committee?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at no discretion from my perspective, the county board can, from an operational standpoint, I believe that's why we have the staffing personnel to make those decisions. Obviously, there are concerns, there are issues. I think this is a positive discussion that we have been talking about for a long time, but things have come up. So from my standpoint, I think those are all things that Mr. Thompson can continue to work on their end. Obviously, they'll have to report back to us, on the personnel piece with the rates and the union negotiations, et cetera, but with the notion that those things, those recommendations, that I would hope that they work together, come up with a strategic plan to execute those, and also provide those benchmarks, obviously, and those metrics to ensure that they're on the right track, and just report back to the county board as a whole, or this body, to make sure what the progress is and how we're doing to obviously mitigate and minimize some of these issues that we have out there. So I empower them to continue to work internally, operationally. That's what they're there for, that we have the personnel out there to do so. It's not my job to tell, I'm not a CNA, I'm not a director for a nursing home. I'm here to, bring some of these topics of discussions, bring ideas and things like that, recommendations, and how the staff is reacting to that and actually making changes to actually on their plans going forward. So from my standpoint, I'm okay with them continuing to go that avenue internally, and then reporting back out to us with different metrics to ensure that they're on track to meet, those expectations. Obviously, if there are constraints or issues out there that we're not going to, then we'll have those discussions as well. So with that being said, I think we just need to move forward on that, Mr. Fiducia.
Very good, Mr. Thompson. I'm very impressed with your some of your solutions. Very, very impressed with that. With that being said, is there any other comments from this committee? Mr. Schultz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the pieces that we've been missing, obviously, is leadership, vision, and hope. And so when you have conversations in the absence of that, it's very difficult to see a way forward. And so I appreciate, Mr. Thompson, that you're providing that vision and you're providing that sense of hope, because that's been lacking. I also would just encourage you, and I'm sure this is part of your plan, is to give us the financial forward look, the pro forma, the multi-year approach to the financial plan, so that we're able to see, here's how this transition is going to occur over time, with the capital plan, with the staffing plan, and with the financial plan. Because to the extent that you show us, and especially, yes, people like me who do this for a living, that we can reasonably hope that we will cross a line and we will stop having a negative cash flow. We will begin having a positive cash flow, and we will begin to refill the hole that we've accumulated. That's going to be very, I'm going to get behind that, and the board is going to get behind that. But we've been in a downward spiral for a long time.
Thank you, Steve. I'll provide the vision and the practical approach towards the solution, but it goes back to our discussion earlier about a CFO. And I'm not a finance, I'm not a CPA. So I need a financial expert that works for the county that can look at the finances of the operation as well. I can provide overall direction and vision and management, but I need that financial expertise that we talked about earlier, and it all goes hand in hand. So.
And I understand that's not your background. I will say that you have some highly qualified people on your team already that I'm sure could put pencil to paper and be helpful in terms of an initial draft.
May I speak?
Sure, Angie.
I want to thank all of you tonight for coming forward and doing this. This is something that should have been done a long time ago, and I truly, truly appreciate it. So does the River Bluff Nursing Home. When I started out there, they had a very hefty reserve. And because over the years so many things have happened, that reserve has been used up, because at one time they had close to $3 million in their reserve. And that was the purpose, because they have to pay for the services before they get reimbursed for them. And so without a reserve, you can't do that. And that's what happened when the reserve got used up and we were left out in the cold. And so it's nice to have all of you working on this to get them going again. The people at River Bluff will just love you because of the fact you've taken interest in them, and they're going to be hanging in there longer because they know you're going to be going forward and trying to do the best you can. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Love you all.
Good enough. Mr. Webster? Mr. Webster, you have a comment?
Yeah, I had to find my mute button. Thank you. Yeah, the one thing that Angie pointed out earlier there, and she's pointed out this a number of times there, is that when you have the union contracts with people in the health field tied with people in the jail, the incarcerating people and so forth, that those are apples and oranges, you know? So it's like we're dealing with two categories of employees altogether there, and the work that they do is so dissimilar. And so it's like saying that we ought to pay the people in the health field the same pay that we pay people for the county highway department, you know? And so, which they are underpaid also. But anyways, I think that separating those groups would be a start in the way to, I don't know, make more equitable pay for the folks that are in the health field there. After all, they're dealing with the lives of human beings every day on a daily basis as well. And so, you know, there's got to be some parity there one way or another about the jobs that we do. And I say this to you from experience. It's been well over 40 years ago when I was driving a truck for a living from a union firm, and the guys were going to strike because we were getting, over 40 years ago, we were getting $15 an hour. And I said, this doesn't make sense. We're striking for more money. And my mother, who had been a nurse all of her life, a registered nurse, she was making a little over $9 an hour. I said, this is crazy. We're tossing freight for a living. They could teach a monkey to do what we do. And this person, my mother, in that respect, was giving shots and medicines and so forth to people on a daily basis. And I thought, this is nuts. You know, so at any rate, there's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. I have every confidence in Mr. Thompson that he's going to be able to negotiate with these unions, and he's going to be able to move us forward. Maybe we could hear from you at some time in 2 weeks would be probably good. And I'm asking this committee if they have any other questions.
Maybe not 2 weeks, but yeah, in due time. Yes.
You know me, Pat.
You want action, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yep.
Because I think this has been going on. This has been going on for the last 12 years and dragging out. And you know, Mr. Thompson, you were talking about changing the name of River Bluff.
Yeah.
When I started on the board out there, I brought that up, and I don't know, and I looked in the phone book for nursing homes and I couldn't find them. So it's quite interesting that you're bringing that up, and I think it's excellent. It's an excellent point. So,
Sometimes it's the simple things.
well, 3 weeks then. So hearing no more comments from anybody on this committee, is there any other matters to come before the joint committee? Seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
Mr. Webster and Mr. Schultz, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, and goodbye. Thank you
Goodbye,
all
good
so
night.